In my initial review, I was almost universally positive about the AirPods Pro 3. However, after testing them for a while, I think some more nuance is required. They are still great at heart rate tracking in many scenarios. However, in a few cases, they were actually pretty bad, and this was with both my AirPods Pro 2 pairs. In general, I had some small issues that made them seem like some firmware or hardware problems are still to be fixed. Now, the meat of this video will be the heart rate tracking performance of the AirPods Pro 3, but at the end I will also describe some of the issues I had using them and also why it wasn't quite as seamless using them as it was to use my AirPods Pro 2s. So let's get started. By the way, for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. And as always, let's start with one of the easiest exercises for a device to track indoor cycling, where we use the Polar H10 ECG chest strap as a reference, which is generally one of the most reliable way of measuring your heart rate. So that's along the horizontal axis. And on the vertical axis, we have the heart rate as measured by the Apple AirPods Pro 3. And if they would perfectly agree, all values should be on or close to the blue line. And we can indeed see that most of the points are super close to the blue line. This is just very good agreement. And the correlation, this R value up here, is 1.00. Now the correlation cannot get higher than 1. So 1.00 rounded is just really good. But let's take a look at some of the individual spinning sessions to see if still something is going on or if there are potential dropouts. So here we have the first spinning session with the reference in blue-green and the AirPods Pro 3 in red. And they basically agree perfectly. Only in the lower heart rate range are there some small deviations that aren't detected by the AirPods Pro 3, but basically no issues at all. This second session is also almost perfect. Same for this third session, fourth session, fifth session, sixth session. All of them basically look perfect and I cannot find any significant dropouts. Maybe right here a few of the lower heart rate measurements were detected and the same for here. But overall, really no real issues. And actually some of the issues you saw were maybe from this session where I actually forgot to turn off the reference. So you can see right here that I took off my reference and it detected no signal and I kept in my AirPods Pro 3. And then later on, I put the reference back on without realizing I'd never turned it off on the phone. So right here, actually the AirPods Pro 3 weren't actually detecting my heart rate actively, but just in the background, I guess. So that's why it was still detecting my heart rate here, which will be unreliable because it wasn't sort of in that sports mode. But for this first part right here, which was the part I actually wanted to measure my heart rate with both the reference and the AirPods Pro 3, the results are again almost perfect. So for indoor cycling, nothing to complain about. One of the best heart rate trackers out there. And we can actually show that to you by comparing it to many of the other devices I've tested before. And that's in this overview right here. So we use that correlation value we were looking at before as the metric, which is along the horizontal axis. And on the vertical axis, I ordered the watches from worst to best based on that correlation value. So the further to the top right the device is, the better is its agreement with the reference. And the AirPods Pro 3 are marked in red. So they're really among some of the top performers. But let's zoom in a little bit so we can look at those labels better. So these are just the devices with a correlation of 0.95 or higher. And the AirPods Pro 3 are basically some of the best performers out there, together with the Apple Watch Ultra 3, the new Apple Watch SE. And I'm actually doing a full test of the Apple Watch Series 11 now, so this is still the old result. Overall though, very good performance, no matter which of these devices you use, be it an Apple Watch Ultra, AirPods Pro 3, or even the new Huawei Watch GT6, all of these seem to do rather well for heart rate tracking. I would say any of these are good enough, but let's make things more difficult. And instead of looking at cycling indoors, let's take a look at the results for cycling outdoors. And right here we have those results for cycling outdoors, which still look really good. Not quite as good as we saw before. There's a few points now below the blue line, indicating that for a few moments the AirPods Pro 3 detected a too low heart rate, but overall still really good with a correlation of 0.99. But there were actually some dropouts if I remember well. So let's take a look at the individual sessions. And here we have the first bike ride, and this looks really good. Nothing major to complain about. However, this second bike ride isn't quite as good. So when there was an increase in heart rate, there were quite a few dropouts. So this is not that good a bike ride. Still, what it measured was mostly correct, but here there were definitely some issues. This looks pretty good again with some minor deviations. Here it also looks pretty good with 2 moments of some dropouts. This looks really good. This right here looks almost perfect. Also right here, almost perfect. This also looks really good with some minor dropout moments like right here. Also here, pretty good result with a minor dropout here. This looks okay, though we had a bigger dropout here in the beginning. This looks quite good. This one looks also quite good with some minor dropout right here. Here also a small dropout. So overall very good with some frequent, very small dropouts. And on 2 bike rides so far, a big dropout. Let's quickly go through all of them to see if we have any bigger dropouts. So this session was one where it really struggled. This one looks pretty okay with some minor dropout. This one actually is really good. This is a medium long bike ride. Pretty okay, but here there's some more deviation and some more dropouts. So occasionally some bigger dropouts. So what it measures is correct, but there will occasionally be a dropout. But let's compare those correlation values to that of many other devices I tested before, and that's in this overview right here, with again the AirPods Pro 3 marked in red, which is again among some of the top performers. This doesn't take into account those dropouts. I need to think of a better metric for this. But overall, still what you get is very solid, but be aware that it might sometimes stop detecting your heart rate for a little bit. Let's zoom into just the best performing devices. Maybe let's zoom out a little bit. So these are just the better performing devices out there. And the Apple AirPods Pro 3 are among some of the best devices. Though in this case, some Apple Watches like the Apple Watch Ultra 3, the Amazfit Helio Strap as well, and some other Apple devices like the Apple Watch Series 9, the Apple Watch Series 11, all seem to do a tiny bit better than the AirPods Pro 3. And from what I remember, these did have fewer dropouts. I'm not exactly sure because I didn't quantify that yet. Overall, still pretty solid results for cycling, but be aware of some moments of dropouts. And let's next take a look at the results for running outside. But before getting to the running results, running this channel, pun intended, next to my full-time job as a scientist is neither easy or cheap. I buy most devices myself, like the 2 AirPods Pro 2 pairs I have. I pay my editor Alex and he edits most of my videos. So if you want to support the channel, the easiest way of doing that is by using one of my affiliate links in the description below, many of which also support you by giving you the best discount possible. Or if you want to continuously support without it costing you any extra, if you could bookmark my general Amazon affiliate link by one time clicking that link and pressing Command or Control D and then using that before making any purchase, that supports the channel and it doesn't cost you any extra, so you just buy the things you normally would, it just supports the channel at the same time. Also, since it might just be that you're into running, the best app for custom running plans and live guidance during runs is the Runna app, the personal app I use to make all my running plans and get live guidance during all the runs that I do. You can get a 2-week free trial using my affiliate link up here or down here. But let's get back to the testing. And here we have the results for running, and this is showing some major issues. So sometimes detected a too high heart rate. There's some more deviations here in the higher heart rate range. So not the worst I've ever seen, but I think there will be a lot of dropouts here and also some wrongly detected heart rates, some potential cadence lock as well. So a correlation of 0.92 is not terrible, but I don't think this tells the full story. So let's take a look at the individual runs. For this, I used a total of 7 different runs. So let's have a look. And here we have the first run. Now I should say that I optimized the ear tip fit. The large one was in the end the one that stayed in my ear very well and I didn't feel the AirPods coming out anymore. I tried small, medium and large, and the large was the best for me. And for this run it looks really good. 1 moment of deviation, otherwise no major problems. However, this second run looks pretty bad. In the beginning there was a major dropout. Then it detected a too low heart rate, then a too high heart rate, potentially cadence lock, and more small moments of dropout near the end. Here in the beginning, probably cadence lock in the beginning with a major dropout, and only near the end did it get better. Also, this interval session was just terrible. You can see during my warm-up, it detected my cadence again, and then during my intervals, just major dropouts. This is just unusable to me. Also right here, major dropouts, cadence lock, weird things going on. Same for this session right here. And this last session, even though it was okay-ish in the beginning, again struggled near the end. So for me, no matter what ear tip size I use, I just cannot get them to fit well in my ear. And when I say that, I don't mean that they don't stay in my ear well. I have no problems anymore with the large size. It's just the heart rate that's not being accurately detected if I run. So for this, I would need a combination of both an Apple Watch and the AirPods Pro 3 to get accurate heart rate tracking most likely. But in general, even for running, an Apple Watch does better on me than the AirPods Pro 3. To close off, let's take a look at the results for weightlifting, which I think is the strength of these devices. And here we have those results, which look pretty good. Again, this doesn't take into account dropout, but when the AirPods Pro 3 detected my heart rate during weightlifting, they seem to be pretty good. A correlation of 0.96 isn't bad at all. There were a few moments where I detected a too low heart rate. Overall, this seems like solid performance, but let's take a look at the individual sessions. So for me, though the results aren't definitive, my impression was so far that if I'm upright, so my head is in a normal position, the heart rate tracking results are pretty good. So most of the peaks were mostly or fully detected, like this session right here, or for instance, also this session right here. I think in both those cases, I did biceps and back and I had no major issues. However, if I did chest and triceps and I was doing a lot of work on the bench, like for instance, chest press, that's where it seemed to struggle more, like this session right here, or especially here in the beginning, I was on the bench and it really didn't detect my heart rates. And it actually still had dropouts similar to what we saw, for instance, for different Apple Watches. Though now there were also some minor dropouts, for instance, in the lower heart rate ranges, though still not quite as bad as when my heart rate increased. And we see the same for this session right here. Again, in the beginning, I was on the bench where it really struggled. And then later on, when I was doing dips, it actually did quite okay. So for some reason, when I seem to lie down, it starts to struggle more. So be aware of that. However, as you will see in a moment, I had a second test subject for which the results were a bit better. And this is already not that bad compared to the competition. If we purely take a look at correlations, the Apple AirPods Pro 3 are actually among some of the best performers, even if we zoom in a bit to just the better performing devices. What it detects is really reliable, but there will be some dropouts similar to different Apple Watches. So in general, just use a chest strap if you want to measure your heart rate in the most reliable way. Make sure you wear it well, so tight enough, but if you do that and you wet the electrodes before you start, you should get a good experience. I actually also asked my friend Barbara, also called Babsi, to test them out for me. In the beginning, I didn't instruct her well enough on how tight you have to wear a chest strap, so I had to reject most of her data, but the results are still interesting for the data that remains. And maybe you can already show me which you think is the most beautiful smartwatch out there.
Okay, let's unpack. In my opinion, this is the most beautiful smartwatch you can wear, especially with these. You should zoom in there.
What is this?
This is the SE Apple Watch.
No, it's not.
Oh.
What does it say on the inside of the watch?
11. Now I know how to check.
So which one do you have?
I don't know the SE. It's the best one and it knows me best.
By the way, not that it matters, but we have this Dutch song called Opblaasbare Afwasbare Barbara, which Babsi just loved when I told her about it. It's an absolutely terrible song, but I'll link it in the description below for your listening pleasure. And let's start with the weightlifting results or the gym results for Barbara. And this looks really good. So the Apple AirPods Pro 3 were able to detect her heart rate quite accurately and is more or less the same as the reference, with just one moment of dropout here in the middle. And her second weightlifting session also looked really good. So as a gym device, this worked really well for Barbara. She also used it for running, but I had to remove most of the data because I could see she was having problems with the chest strap. And I think some of these quick drops in heart rate right here, according to the chest strap, actually weren't reliable measurements. Overall, though, the major patterns measured by the AirPods Pro 3 did agree with the chest strap. And you can see the same for this second running session, though again, I'm pretty sure that these dropouts right here weren't actual dropouts. She just wasn't wearing the chest strap tight enough. So that's one thing. If you get a chest strap, you can get the most reliable heart rate measurements, but you need to wear it well enough and make sure that the electrodes are wet. Overall though, for weightlifting, we can for sure see better performance for Barbara than I had with the AirPods Pro 3, or at least fewer dropouts. So overall good performance except for when running. And I did try all the different sizes of the ear tips. I started with medium, this didn't work. I went one size smaller to small, this was even worse. And then I took the largest size. And the largest size in the end actually seemed to stay quite well in my ear and also didn't cause the AirPods to come loose when running. So overall, this did give me a good fit. However, still, at least on me, the fit is apparently not good enough to get good heart rate tracking consistently during all my runs. And we clearly see some signs of dropouts and also some signs of cadence lock still. I suspect that out of all types of devices out there, ear-worn devices are likely most influenced by the differences in our physiology, just because we cannot really strap them down like we do with smartwatches. So some of you might get amazing results still for running with the AirPods Pro 3, like Des from DesFit got for instance. Or you might get results like mine, which just weren't that great for running, though they were pretty good for all the other exercises. So I expect that for static exercises, the AirPods Pro 3 likely do amazing, and they're probably the best option out there if you don't want to wear a chest strap in the gym. I did get a dropouts a few times, but still the best device that is not an ECG chest strap. Though as you know, jugs just use a chest strap if you want to get the best heart rate tracking during any exercise. However, if you get a really good fit with the AirPods Pro 3, you'll likely also get amazing heart rate tracking. Now to close off, I do have to mention the issues I had with my 2 pairs of AirPods. Let's start with this first pair I have right here, which I had custom engraved. For me, sometimes one of the 2 AirPods would just start whistling really loudly all of a sudden after touching it. This got really loud and annoying. I actually found a Reddit thread of people with the same problem, and I actually linked that thread below. Now this is also the pair I asked Babsi to test for me, and after she gave them back to me, we disconnected them from her Apple account. But for some reason she still remains the owner, so I don't really know what's going on here. I haven't been able to register them fully to myself, and Find My only works for the AirPods and not the case, so kind of annoying, and I can also not do the location part. That might just be a registration issue, but we tried everything to get it disconnected from her account and to make me the owner again. Now the second pair is this pair, which I bought just because the other one was delayed. And these were the ones I started testing initially, but the problem with these is that for in about 1 out of 10 cases, only one of the 2 AirPods plays sound, usually the right one, but sometimes also just the left one. Also, the phone then still thinks that this AirPod that's already in my ear is still charging for a while, even when it's outside of the case. And even when I put both of them back in the case, close it, open it, or shake it around, it just doesn't solve the issue. I found that in most cases I have to plug in the case to a charger with the AirPods in there. If I then take them out and put them in my ear, most of the time they seem to work. But this solution is not always possible on the go, so kind of annoying. And finally, one thing I noticed is that I can often not pause the workout I'm doing in the fitness app without swiping up first, and even then the pause button often doesn't work. I can only actually stop the workout, not pause it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, it's not a big deal, but just kind of annoying. So overall, pretty great heart rate tracking in most cases, except for running, at least on me. But this again might be due to my personal physiology and you might get better results. However, overall, the product experience still feels slightly buggy, but hopefully that will be fixed with future firmware updates. Now, I would be really curious to hear about your experience. Did you have similar issues or other weird software bugs with Apple now with new iOS 26 and watchOS 26? Now again, if you want to support the channel and also support your own wallet, use my affiliate links in the description below. Whether it be you want to get the AirPods Pro 3, an Apple Watch, an H-Sleep Pod, a Whoop strap, maybe an Oura ring, or anything at all on Amazon for that matter, even something as small as toilet paper. You can also become a YouTube member, which is basically like Patreon on YouTube, and it gives you early access to some of my videos. Now, given that you watched this whole video, I think you will like this video on the Apple Watch Ultra 3 or this video on Apple's new sleep score.